Good evening, and thank you for joining me once again. Another video from Energy Vampires. And the title of this video tonight is What the Gods Don't Want You to Know. And I might change that title because it's not completely accurate. I don't know what the title is going to be, but it's going to be similar to that, but it might be a bit different. Okay, because it's not the gods, all of them, because the gods are different. They're not all the same, right? It's the same with any institution, any government that we know. There's good and there's bad, right? So like they're not all a cookie cutter god. In the you got the Council of Gods. They're in disagreement. There's conflict, just like there is down here, as above, so below, right? But yeah, there's certainly some gods who do not want you to know certain things, and I'm going to tell you what that is, right? So yeah, you'll know the title because when you're watching the video, you'll see the title, right? Okay, but anyway, let's talk about it. So first of all, we've got the creation of man. Okay, so the gods, the Elohim, they came to the earth that was already here. They created man who was already here. All right. So basically, it was a team of scientists, and you may be thinking at this point, well, that's a little bit far-fetched, but no, it's not, because we today are on the cusp of being able to do amazing things genetically with genetic manipulation, modification, cloning. We can do all sorts of things, or we're just coming into that knowledge. We're just on the cusp of it, right? And if you can imagine, right, the gods, they're not omnipresent, omnipotent, immortal, creators of the whole universe, right? They're advanced extraterrestrial beings. They're supreme beings, right? And, they came to the earth, right? Well, how do I know this? It requires a video all on its own. So I can't go into it right now in this video. But what I speak of, I speak from not only the Bible, but more older, more ancient texts that collaborate and expand and add further knowledge that allow you to join the dots and make sense of it, right? So yeah, that's all I can say. Otherwise the video would be too long, right? So the gods, they came, they made man in his image, but a watered down version, right? Because we were not meant to be. We were meant to be like the gods in the manner that was useful to the gods, but not so much like the gods that we were a threat to their position or power, or couldn't be controlled, couldn't be malleable, right? So we were a watered down version, much like if you can imagine a lion, right? And then you got little kittens, little cats that are like small and they sit on your lap and they purr, right? Well, they're like lions, but they're like watered down. They're like miniature versions, right? And that's what we were, because what happened was, right? I'm kind of jumping quite fast, right? I'm going to move through the chronology quite fast because I want to try and explain a lot of concepts in a short time, right? So, when man was placed in the garden, there was a tree, right? And I don't know if these stories are true. We're going with the story so that we can try and see it in a different perspective. It might be symbolic, might be literal, may not be true at all, right? But let's go through the story. All right, so the tree was put in the middle of the garden, and it was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And God said to man, "You must not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for in the day that you do, you shall surely die." Right? Now, what happened is the serpent came along, who I believe was a god, one of the Elohim. Okay. You see, let me just say this quickly, right? You see, we're not talking about, Judeo Christianity today, says that, it's one God, right? The word God used in the Hebrew scripture is gods, Elohim. El is singular, Elohim is plural, right? Now, you can't say it's the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, because that's a way modern. This is modern. It's like in the last 400 years or so. All right. Don't forget, it's the Jewish book, and the Jews never believed in the Trinity because they don't even believe that Jesus was the Messiah. All right. Now, monotheism was the 7th century BC. Right. So, like, that's relatively new as well. Right. It was always polytheism, always, all throughout history, all through the millennia. Right. And of course, you've got language of we and us. It's gods. There's a council of gods that's ruling over the earth, and you've got the Most High God, which is a position that's held for a term. It's Jehovah, Yahweh is the Most High. He's like the King of Kings, the King of the gods. He's in charge at the moment for the Elohim or the Anunnaki, right? So yeah, what happened was when Adam and Eve, they ate the fruit, God said, behold, man has become like us, right? So that was confirming that the serpent told the truth. Okay, because the serpent said that if you eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you shall surely not die. Well, Adam lived on for another 900 years. Okay, but your eyes shall be opened and you shall become like God. Okay, well, God confirmed that was indeed what happened. Man's eyes was open and he became like God. Okay. Now there was a shift. There was something there was an awareness. There was some self-awareness. There was a change in man because man saw his nakedness and hid from God. Okay. So something did happen. Right? Now, this was forbidden by God for man to have the knowledge of good and evil, to have enlightenment, to have this like new awareness. That was forbidden. It was not allowed. That's why the command was given in the first place, right? Now, how also is interesting that God then guarded the tree to prevent man from going back and eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil again, because it says that he put cherubim. Was it cherubim or seraphim, or cherubim and seraphim? I can't remember. But he guarded the tree, right? And there were swords around the tree to prevent man from going back. So there was a great threat to man having the knowledge of good and evil and enlightenment. There was a threat to that. There was a threat to the gods, and God did not want that for man. We were meant to be watered down, right? So it's interesting if we now jump into the future. We got the Tower of Babel, right, where man had erected a tower, and God came down and he saw that, and again it says, he clearly states that man is trying to reach the heavens, trying to gain enlightenment. The nature of man is to try to advance and develop and evolve and get greater knowledge and achievements. Okay, that's what we've always tried to do, but it's forbidden, right? You can't do it, right? I mean, look what happened to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now we've got the Tower of Babel. And what did God do? He dispersed mankind, he changed their languages and confused them to slow down the progress, right? So it was like he was hindering the advancement of man, right? Whereas the serpent was like man's advocate, trying to encourage man and show man the way to get knowledge and enlightenment. Now, it's interesting if we look at God's attitude and thoughts towards trying to achieve enlightenment. Okay, so I want to show you some scriptures, and I'm going to read a few scriptures to you because, you see, there's so much I want to say and there's such a short time to say it, right? But there were many gods, and there are many gods written in the Bible as well, and they are deemed today as false gods, and I think that most Christians today don't even believe they were real gods. They were just made up gods. They were just completely made up, but they were probably Elohim. They were probably Elohim, Anunnaki, extraterrestrial, supreme being, maybe all with different agendas. Maybe some were our advocates trying to help us and care for us, right? I mean, Jehovah was going killing everybody, right? Demanding blood sacrifice, killing, yeah, I can't go. I mean, this opens up a 3-hour video talking about that, because the Old Testament is jam packed with genocide, infanticide, and all kinds of atrocities. That was what Jehovah was all about. But there were probably some gods that were. I mean, look at the serpent, right? Trying to help man. Okay, and there was Baal. There were all kinds of gods. But yeah, I think that some of the gods were maybe trying to teach mankind, and it's interesting because the Bible has a lot to say about spiritualists, mediums, psychics, all those things. You know, in Christians today, they're against it. Okay, so let's look at some scriptures. Okay, so we've got here Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 9 through to 12. It says, "When you enter the land of the Lord your God is giving you, do not learn to imitate the detestable ways of the nations there. Let no one be found among you who sacrifices his son or daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, or casts spells, or who is a medium or spiritist, or who consults the dead. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord." Right? Okay, now let's look at some more. So we've got here okay, Leviticus chapter 20 and verse 6. "I will set my face against the person who turns to mediums and spiritists to prostitute himself by following them. I will cut him off from his people." Okay. Okay, so I think that will do. Alright, now it's interesting that there are many times in the Bible where God's own people were doing things that could be bordering on, you know, the types of things that he forbid, which is interesting. And then what about when they were casting lots? You know, that's something that they did in the Bible. They would cast lots, right? I mean, what's that if it's not like, you know, kind of doing something, you know, kind of, I don't know, let me think. Yeah, perhaps like divination. Now, I think that all things considered, when you look at the God's attitude and his position on enlightenment and knowledge, okay, I reckon that the problem is that if you were able to consult interdimensional beings, if you're able to consult with interdimensional beings, spirits, higher beings, you know, above this plane of existence, all right, or higher than this plane of existence, then you open yourself up to knowledge and enlightenment that could enhance you and improve you and upgrade you, right, and take you on a path closer to the ability of the gods, right? And that's a problem. That is a problem to the gods that don't want that for mankind. So you got the gods that are like suppressing man, and you got the gods that are trying to help man, right? And again, when I say gods, I'm not religious, but we're talking about, you know, gods with the small g, right? We're talking about like self-appointed gods, you know, supreme advanced beings. If you go into a deep rainforest in the middle of the South American jungle and you find a tribe that has nothing, they've never seen anyone, they've never had any outside contact, and you turn up with your mobile phone, your tablet, your laptop, you know, your funny clothes, right? You're fully clothed, you got nice clothes, you got a cigarette lighter, you can make fire very easily with a cigarette lighter, you got all the, you know, maybe you pull up in a vehicle, right? They're going to think you're a god, right? They're going to think you're well, you can certainly convince them very easily that you're a god if you wanted to.